Hi, welcome to Healthy Homesteading Adventures. Today's November 15, 2023. We're going to talk about the fight for the homestead between my husband and myself, and things I had to go through and the way he was fighting. If you notice the thumbnail that I put for this video, it's actually of my son after a bodybuilding competition with the axe that he got. And then my daughter, she liked to bodybuild too, so she's holding on to the bottom, and they wanted to pose like they were fighting, fighting for it. And, the very look of determination on her face to win, and his look of calmness, like he had nothing to worry about, kind of is where I felt in this divorce. So the first thing you do is you file, and it was back in 2015. Sometime in July, I believe it was either end of June or July, because he had to respond. What I was facing was his friend told me that if I divorced my husband, then he was going to take everything away from me. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because he told me that with his first wife, he gave her everything. I let her have the house. He was so generous. But people like him, they like to make themselves out to be the hero, so it probably wasn't true in the first place. I wanted to go through some of my court paperwork so you could just see what I was kind of facing here. His friend was actually bombarding me on Facebook Messenger with quotes from a wonderful book called Desire of Ages, and he was trying to get me to be forgiving of my husband. And I tried to tell him I did forgive him so many times. It's been 11 years and nothing has changed. And if you wonder what I'm talking about hadn't changed, you'll have to see the first part. It'll be in the description. It's actually called 5 Reasons for Homestead Divorce. Okay. So filed on July 20, 2015 was his declaration. And it says, the 332-acre property in French Gulch down payment of $40,000 was paid with commingled funds consisting of inherited money and community funds, as was the $23,000 for materials to put up the shell of the house, which is, the metal building, and the concrete slab it sits on. Now, I actually had bank records to prove that all that was a lie. He may have paid a little bit for his own support, food and things like that. But all of that came out of my inheritance, and he knew it. And so, the battle was on his word against my proof. Why? But, when you really want to have something for free, you do what you can to fight for it. He said the property title and mortgage were placed in Tamara's name for tax purposes. However, not to diminish my own actual personal interest in the property. Our combined wages have been commingled with inheritance money throughout our marriage. Yeah, he did start helping some, but we were very poor when I married him. He was supposed to be paying child support, and if he had his money in the bank, they'd take it out, and we'd have nothing. And some of the times I wasn't working, and so, yeah, it was really bad for trying to pay truck payments and all. But also how he mentioned for tax purposes that he did not have his name on the land. Well, I did another video. The link will be in the description. It's about the grant deed. And so you can watch that video on how important it is to have this grant deed filled out. Because if your marriage is shaky, which mine was, I think we only lasted 2 years together on the property. So we came in 2012. That's 3 years actually. 2012 to 2015. The divorce wasn't until 2016. But yeah, he was out of here in 2015. I'm covering some of this in the blog, but I wanted to share something I brought up in my blog after the divorce, this was really amazing. I found these papers in a manila envelope, a big one, and this is what it said. He had filed with the title company. Cancellation of signature on interspousal transfer grant deed. That's what it's called, the interspousal transfer grant deed. The signature provided on document number 2012-000, it gives all its zeros, and 8307, known as interspousal transfer grant deed, on file at the County of Shasta Recorder's Office, is hereby rescinded, canceled, and revoked. And gives his name. Husband of the vestee herein hereby cancels the grant to Tamara Livano, a married woman, and retains the property designated herein as equally owned spousal community property. The land described herein is situated in the state of California, and you don't need all that stuff, but that's the location of the parcel. It is the express intent of husband's name, being the spouse of me, to retain all right, title, and interest, and to the herein described property as his joint spousal community property. Then at the bottom he says, mail tax statements to parties shown on the following line. If no party shown, mail as directed above. So he's assuming that he's going to get this paperwork and he's going to take away the property from me, and then you can send me, those all those taxes. So then he got something back from the title company, effective January 1, 2015. Documents where the person appeared before a notary or other officer on or after January 1, 2015 are not acceptable for the recordation unless the following disclosure appears as required. January 1, 2015. Oh, whatever. So, apparently, he went and got a notary June 18, 2015. But maybe he got it back too late. I think he got it back too late because he had to send it to them and something went wrong. Or maybe he never sent it. I don't know. But there it was. So he was fighting tough. Really doing what he could to get the land. Alright, going back to his declaration. You know what I thought was interesting? He said, our combined wages have been commingled with inheritance money throughout our marriage. Well, you can't exactly say that because we were married before my mother died, so he can't say that. I feel just as responsible for the remaining loan amount of $50,000 as Tamara does. Well, if he feels so responsible, then why wasn't he getting a job to help make the payments? He didn't make any payments. The Toyota Tundra lease, this is number 2 on the truck we had together, has been paid through community funds. That is true. He helped pay some of that. Though the lease went into a default a couple of times, it seems irrelevant to the fact that the funds to save the lease came from commingled funds. Okay. The funds to actually save the lease? May have been. He wants to have right of co-ownership to the truck, even though his name wasn't on it. Now, number 3, I reserve the right to remain on the property because it is largely mine as well. Pending appraisal, it will most likely be determined that I will have more vested interest in the property than Tamara, through my labor to make improvements, and by the increase in the property value because of those improvements. On the other hand, if Tamara wants to separate herself and Ivana, my daughter, from my presence, they are welcome to leave or stay as they choose. He wanted us to just live together with him. The whole point was to get him away. I found this to be interesting. I don't even remember half this stuff. Just looking back over it. And why am I sharing this? Because it might help somebody else going through the same thing. I truly believe that God brought me here to this land for a purpose. And yet, I was not having peace. I did not. I always get afraid when going to court, because I've been through divorce once before, and it's such a nerve-wracking thing. So I was much in prayer over this, asking God to save this property, and you know, but then there were some other concerns, but we'll get to those. These are other requests. This was very interesting. I request marriage family counseling, whether we end up staying together or not, to help the family deal with the issues we face. Tamara has been bringing the children into our marriage relationship and adult decision-making processes throughout our marriage. He's trying to make me look really bad. Which she has been warned by marriage and family counselors would enable them to think they have a say in the happenings of our relationship. The children have been allowed to manipulate Tamara and pit her against me. Gary Damron is one counselor with an enviable track record of helping individuals, blah, 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 and he's talking about how he can help you fall in love again. Okay. My little comment that I wrote down there is that Gary is the manipulator, and he's the one who keeps looking at porn. And also, he's the one who was also being unkind to my children, and they hated him, basically. And I tried for the longest time to hold the family together. It's very difficult. And he's trying to blame it on me. He says he requests mediation. Number 3, I request the court to award full ownership and control of the land and house to me. Huh. Okay. Why? Is it in his name? Is it bought with his inheritance money? Here's why. I designed and am currently building the house. I engineered and built the water system that brings water from the spring some 3,000 feet to the house. I don't believe it was 3,000 feet, but yeah, I don't know. I engineered and built the septic system. Now, if any of you have already seen my video on the septic system and the leach field, they were built without a permit, and since I've had to redo them, so those I'll be making a video of the redoing of them to make them actually permittable. The electrical and gas systems seem to be a mystery to Tamara. Huh. So he's not going to share with me about them. Could I learn? Yes, she thinks so. Did you think I could learn, babies? Up here. I couldn't get her. Or maybe she's too dumb to live on the property by herself. I maintain and repair all of the above as needed, while Tamara lacks the knowledge or capacity to know what to do. She's too dumb. Can you believe it? You can't award this wonderful property to this dumb woman who doesn't even know what to do. Really? I mean, she's hanging on to that axe just thinking about it, you know. My job for the last 3+ years has been building and maintaining the house and all of the other improvements to the property to make life better for the whole family. Except for the last 8 months when he was supposed to be getting a job. Which, it was just a pretend job. Nothing ever materialized that brought in money. The property has become a part of me, and I a part of it. Instead of being praised for my accomplishments, I get verbally abused for what she thinks I should have done in addition to what I did. Since she seems to not appreciate what I've done to improve the family's way of life, since she gives no value to my ongoing efforts, she is welcome to find happiness in some other abode. She told me recently that she could care less if I became homeless. That is very true. I did say that. Because he's the one who's been unfaithful all these years, and he needs to stop expecting a woman to support him and get out and get his own place. When I asked her what she would do if the table was turned and I was the one demanding that she leave, she told me she could stay with a friend who lives closer to her work. I spoke with this friend a couple of days ago who confirmed with me that Tamara and Ivana would be welcome to come live with her. I don't even remember that conversation. Sounds good on his part though, doesn't it? Since she has a place. On the other hand, I have no place else to go, and I reserve the right to live on the land I've put so much of my heart and soul into. I made the place what it is today. And number 4, he said, I request the court to order Tamara to pay for my attorney to help me with discovery and sorting out the complicated mingling of inherited funds with our common funds, which I have had equal access to all these years and which we have been using to pay for the day-to-day expenses. Yeah, and most of those funds, he would ask me for money for various things like water tank or other tanks that he thought he could need up the mountain things. So that all came from inheritance. And yes, he was living off of funds that I earned from working, yes. Going on, number 5. I request that all of the household pets also be awarded to me. I think we had 6 at the time. Or maybe was it 7? We had Trigger, Johann, Wolfie, Rory, Kika, Columbus, and Pebbles. So we had 7. It said that they be awarded to him at least until Tamara is so situated as to be able to keep some of them at her new residence permanently. That's assuming that he would get this property. Number 6, I request that the motorhome be awarded to me. Even though it was in my name, if he got the property, he wants to get all these things. Number 7, I request the tractor be awarded to me. Yes. Number 8, I request the utility trailer be awarded to me. So the tractor, he ended up taking the tractor when he moved out because that's what he wanted. I put down that he stole the utility trailer, but he actually did do a lot of work on that trailer, and I ended up letting him keep that. I request that, number 9, that spousal support in the amount of $2,000 a month be awarded to me. 10, I request that all tools be awarded to me since none of them pertain to Tamara's line of work or necessities, and I use all of them as often as needed. I am negotiable on furniture, bedding, and books. So, if he was planning to stay on the property, he was probably wanting to keep the chainsaw and the weed eater. Okay, so he goes on to say, in another order, this one is for basically requesting spousal support. This one is, we've been married for over 11 years. During that time, I have allowed most of our possessions to be put in Tamara's name, since I considered our marriage to be solid and everlasting. He knows our marriage wasn't ever solid. When a person's unfaithful and the wife is constantly threatening to divorce him, yeah, I wouldn't consider that solid and everlasting. And it was all dependent on whether he wanted to stop what he was doing. And so the truck was put in my name because he had bad credit, terribly bad credit, so yeah, having his name on there wasn't a good idea. I always figured it all goes to the same place anyway, and we both shared equal access to all things as in common at all times. Since moving to the French Gulch property, I have drawn the plans for and begun to build the house we live in. I have engineered and developed the water system all the way from the spring to the water storage tank and house. I have engineered and developed the septic system from the house drains through the septic tank lift station. Oh, the lift station, all the way to the distribution box and leach-filled components. The lift station is, he put in a pump, and nothing was permanent, and I had to have it all redone, gravity flow. I have set up the complicated temporary electrical systems, and I maintain all of the above. My main job has been the development of the property, while Tamara's job is to be the main money earner for our financial support base to make my job possible. Okay. You know, like what I shared on the last video on the problems with the wife working and to support the family and the husband working on the property. This should not be a permanent situation. As you can see, he's trying to take advantage of that. And the last 8 months or more, well, he wasn't working on the property very much at all. And I told him he needed to get a job. And he was trying to. And his idea of a job was a job that wasn't paying anything. So he says, I've put my heart and soul into this property and this relationship for the long haul. The property is as much a part of me now as a hand or a foot. I do accept odd jobs for people when they are available, but this does not generate enough income to be self-supporting or family supporting. You know, so the wife decides that the husband is being unfaithful and he's not helping support the family, and there's no point in continuing the relationship. And now the husband wants to be supported when she wants to get him out of the situation so he can go on and live his life how he wants to, and yet he wants to have support. So it seems unfair. I also prepare bids for commercial flooring jobs when they are available to bid on. However, this does not generate enough income consistently either, especially if my bids are not successful. Really? And that's what he was supposed to be doing, to support the family. And he went forward to try to do a job and ended up having to borrow money from me on a new credit card, and I never got all that money back because it was a fail. To take on, now this is a real joke, this next one. To take on a minimum wage job would not provide adequate support, and also I would have to drive into Reading to fulfill that job. Are you kidding me? Which would keep me from the necessary care I need to devote to the property and the ongoing construction, and would also result in a more negative flow of means due in part to the costs associated with the drive to and from work every day, and would prevent me from being able to adequately and timely perform the odd jobs and commercial bidding I undertake. Oh, wow. You would think that a judge would find this very amusing. Excuses why a person wants to be able to stay on a property that is going to need some finances to go forward, and yet he doesn't want to work to bring in those finances. The wife should have to pay for it, even though her inheritance money bought the property and put up the house. And interesting. Let's go to court. All right, so court is terrifying to me, but I had to go. So I show up at the county courthouse. I go upstairs. I open the door to the courtroom, and what do you suppose I see? The room is just full of people. There's hardly a place to sit. I find a place to sit in the back. He's not even there yet. He comes in and almost has to sit by me. I mean, that's how crazy this whole thing is. Well, with all these people, it turns out that his lawyer got on the docket first. So we were up to see the judge first. And the judge, now he makes these rules. Oh, and the judge wasn't really a judge. He was a commissioner. And so commissioners are hired by the judge, and they take the cases. And the commissioner said you could refuse to have him hear the case. I should have. But I went ahead with it because my dad was a commissioner in family law, so I thought, well, might as well. So we got called up to go to the front, and his lawyer, he had a little lady lawyer in her little mini dress. And we went up to the front. And the judge gave the rules. No interrupting. And you will have your turn to speak, so don't interrupt. And I have a really hard time with not interrupting or speaking out on things, but I determined I was going to behave and not to say anything. But the lawyer she started out with, Your Honor, they took out a loan to pay the down payment on the property. And I was so shocked, I couldn't stop. I couldn't resist. And I said, Excuse me? I don't know where you got your information from, but I paid the down payment with my inheritance money. Truth is, I took out a loan on the property from a private lender to pay off the rest, to make payments. He wasn't on it. It was all my responsibility, every bit of it. Well, the judge didn't interrupt me or get me in trouble. He didn't say anything, but it probably didn't help me for later. Well, and the court just went on, and I'm just like terrified and nervous, and because we're in the actual fight now, So what ends up happening is the judge, after a time, he's looking at the paperwork, and he says to the cute little lawyer, I'm sorry, but she has the paperwork, so I have to give the property to her. It's almost like if I didn't have that interspousal grant deed, he might have given Gary everything. That's how terrible this fight could have ended up if I didn't have that. So I'm telling you that interspousal grant deed is very important. You might want to watch the video that I made on it, and the link is in the description. Then it came to the really scary part about spousal support, alimony. And he didn't have an answer. He said, well, I'll have to look over all this stuff here and decide, and I will give my judgment, and it will come in the mail. But he did say, he gave a date. I think he gave a date. That's when Gary had to leave. Either that or it came with he wasn't being forced to leave until the judgment came. So I think that he was given a date that he had to leave, and it would be after he received the answer on the money. Okay, so the answer did come, and I was just totally shocked. I was ordered to pay him $1,200 a month spousal support. I was so shocked. I had a teenage daughter, and now I'm supposed to support a man who should be supporting himself. The day came when he was supposed to move out. He got his first payment, and he arranged a really nice place. He found a place in in Manton, California, where he would have electricity and a nice little cabin, and it was up in the mountains. And still, he's far away from town, so it's going to be hard for him to work. He's going to have to drive far if he does. So I'm assuming that he's not going to take the cats, any of them. And the day he decided to move, I had to go to work, and my daughter had to go to school. But before we left, I made sure to take the weed eater, and I hid it outside upstream in the brush. And then I went outside. He was in the backyard, and I went out to talk to him, and I told my daughter, quick, get the chainsaw and hide it in the truck. And it was in the room that we had toward the front that he was keeping all the tools and some other stuff stored in there. And it was just a framed room. So she's in there trying to get it out. It's kind of really hard. And she finally got it, and she brought it out and got it to the truck just in time. And so we went off, and apparently on the way home, I got a text from him saying, oh, by the way, you might want to get a ladder. because I took the ladder. And we're like almost home, and it's 9 o'clock at night. And the ladder is how my daughter went up into the loft to her room. And she had to climb up the side walls. There's no stopping a girl that's a bodybuilder. I'll just put some pictures in here so you can see them, how she climbed up. Okay, and one of the saddest days of my life was to realize that he had taken 3 of the cats. He took Trigger, which Trigger was his cat, but he also took Wolfie and Johan, which were 2 kitties that we had adopted. You can check back on my channel and on my blog at healthyhomesteadingadventures.com to read their story. I was devastated, and I cried. Nothing else made me cry but taking the cats without even asking. Johan had a terrible disease called megacolon and needed proper veterinary care, and I knew he wasn't going to have the money for that. He should never have taken him. His reasoning later was to say that he couldn't part with his friends. Okay, remember that, because in the future we're going to find out that he certainly could have. Alright, well, that's all I want to cover today. The tragedy of divorce. It can be a real fight. I could see God's hand in saving the land, the property and everything. And this is where it all began for me, to start all over again. I started with my daughter, and we were now going to be alone because my son had already left the property sometime before because he didn't like being around Gary. So here we were, all alone. I forgot to mention. Oh, yes. Somehow he managed to get someone up here to help him haul away the tractor. And he took a trailer, but he had kind of redone the trailer and made it nice, so really I didn't mind, he could have it. But because he stole the tractor, and I had all this alimony with no end in sight, I had to get a lawyer. And I'll just summarize really quickly what this all entailed to me. It took paying the lawyer a retainer fee, and he ended up going to court with Gary, and I didn't have to go. And I'm so glad, because I'm so stressed. I get so easily stressed out because I like to know the outcome, and you don't know the outcome, it just makes me nervous. So the lawyer worked it out. He told me he didn't know if he could get the alimony stopped, but he would try. And so in court, they worked it out that the alimony would stop. Gary got about $6,000 total in alimony. So it took about 6 months or so before, maybe a little over 6, for this to end. He was ordered to give back the tractor, but he said he had no way of bringing it home. So I had to rent a trailer and go get it myself. And that's it. I ended up paying the lawyer $4,000 and Gary $6,000, and so this whole thing ended up costing me $10,000. So you can see that was a big, you may wonder what's taking her so long to get anywhere on her property. Well, that was a big, big expense.